The next root word is Benny or Ben or Bon. Irrespective of these three different spellings, they have one meaning called good, something good. Okay. If you have been noticing something which is very important out of all the root words what we have been discussing, like the way we have antonyms in vocabulary, we do have antonyms or opposite words in root words too. That's exactly is the speciality of root word. The first word is beneficial. Okay, beneficial means something which is actually bringing us any kind of benefit, or in other words, profit. Okay, when government comes up with any plans exclusively for people who are underprivileged, definitely those plans are going to be very beneficial for people who are the needy, right? So beneficial, something which brings benefit. The second one, beneficent. Beneficent is actually a person who does something good. Who does something good. So if you are a person who does something good to others, you are a beneficent person who always produces something good for others. Might not be in the literal sense all the time, in the literal sense of producing, but you always do something good for sure. It's actually called as beneficent. Beneficiary is the person who receives something good. Very, very important. Who receives something good for sure. So if I am making a charity to people, I am a beneficent. If you are the person who is receiving the charity from me, then you are a beneficiary. Okay, so beneficent, beneficiary. Next, benediction. Benediction is made up of two root words. The first root word is Benny. The second root word is Dick or Dict. Alright, Dick or Dict is a root word which means to say. To say. Okay, now you can easily guess the meaning of the word. Benny means good. Dict means to say something. So if you are a person who says something good, is actually called as benediction. Especially if you are a Christian, you must have heard this word benediction ample number of times, because at the end of every ceremony, the religious ceremony, people use this word called benedict. Let's end with a benediction. It's all about saying something good. It's a kind of prayer what people make at the end, right? So benediction in general means saying something good. Okay. Next, benign. Benign is a person who is a wonderful person by nature, who is a great person by nature, very kind, gentle, who always thinks of others. So if you are a person by nature, you're filled with a lot of virtue, you're actually called as benign. In other words, virtuous. Next word, benevolent. Benevolent is a person who does something good to others all the time. In other words, benevolent actually means selfless. Selfless. You always think about others. You never think of I, me, myself, mine. For you, it's all about helping others, working for others, doing good to others. Then you are actually considered as a benevolent person. Okay? Bona fide. Bona fide actually means in good faith, authentic or genuine or real. Something good, again, bon is coming into picture, which means good for sure. Bon voyage. Bon voyage, this word, or get to hear this word when somebody is traveling by ship or traveling by water. Okay, so this is a French word. When I say bon voyage to somebody, it's like, hey, have a good trip, have a good journey. That's exactly is the meaning. It's a kind of wishing to the other person. Bon voyage, have a good trip. That's the meaning. Okay, so as we discussed Benny or bon, let's discuss the opposite root word of Benny or bon, that is mal. Okay, let's take a look at this root word mal in detail. Mal means bad or harmful. So that's why it is considered as an antonym to Benny, because Benny means good, mal means bad, a perfect antonym to each other for sure. Let's look at the example words here. Malefactor. Mal means bad, factor. Any factor which is a bad factor is actually called as malefactor. Okay. Malice, one of the commonly used words in day-to-day conversation, at the same time, many times has been asked in different competitive examinations. Malice actually means having a strong desire of harming somebody, or in other words, doing something bad to others, like a typical villain of the Indian cinema, because the only one job of the villain in a movie is to do something bad, keep on harming people, right? So that's exactly it's called as malice. Malpractice, either you must have heard of it or you must have experienced it by yourself. Malpractice basically means a bad. So malpractice, a bad practice. In other words, copying in examination. Obviously, copying from somebody else's answer sheet is not a good practice at all from any perspective, right? So malpractice means copying, which is indirectly a very bad practice. Malnutrition. Mal means bad, nutrition, everybody knows, a bad nutrition. Because of malnutrition, what all can happen, we have been saying since a long time, right? Malnutrition. Malign. Malign means always saying all unpleasant, bad words to others. Bad words to others, okay? If you are a person who is malign, it means you are like a typical Sasuma of the Sas Bahu serial. You open your mouth, you always say something very unpleasant to others. You always say something very bad to others. That is malign. Malignant. Malignant and malevolent both are actually kind of synonyms, which means very harmful or very evil. Okay. One thing you should be noticing so far, every word which has mal has something to do with either bad or harmful for sure. Maleficent. Maleficent means a person who deliberately tries to cause harm or evil. In other words, malign and maleficent both actually fit together as synonyms. You always think of doing something bad intentionally, not like unknowingly, it just happened by mistake, nothing as such. You are doing it deliberately or intentionally. That is maleficent. Malediction. If you can recollect this, we discussed a word called benediction under Benny. Malediction and benediction both are antonyms to each other. Benediction, saying something good. Malediction, saying something very bad. Okay, you can even go to the extent of cursing somebody, using all filthy words and bad words on someone. That is malediction. The next word is malcontent. Malcontent actually means a person who is dissatisfied or rebellious. Means you are a person who is very dissatisfied with the way you are dressed up, the way you are living, the way you are having fun in your life. It could be anything for that matter. So if that is the case, it's actually considered as malcontent. Next one, maladroit. Actually, adroit. Adroit is a root word which means skillful. Skillful. Okay. So maladroit means basically not skillful, not adroit. Means you're not skillful enough to do anything using your hands. Okay. Usually people who are very, very skillful, they do a lot of good, productive things. So opposite of that is maladroit. Next one, malformation. Malformation means an abnormally formed part of body. Okay, an abnormally formed part of body. The fingers are not normal. They look absolutely abnormal. Something which usually doesn't happen to most of the people. That's exactly is called as malformation. Okay, we come to the end of mal, but you must have definitely noticed over here, we have a lot of set of antonyms like malign, benign, right? Malediction, benediction, right? And then you have beneficent, maleficent. Like this, we have many sets of antonyms here. This is going to be very, very useful. So make sure you are all ears with what we are discussing. Next root word is fill. We actually discussed miss. Miss actually means hate. Missian means hater, right? Opposite of the root miss is fill or filion, which means love or lover. So let's have a look at all the words which come under the same category. The first one is bibliophile. Bibliophile. Bibli actually is a root word which means books. Phil means love. So if you have excessive love towards books, you have huge collection, you keep reading books, etc., then you are called as a bibliophile, right? Next one, philanthropist. We discussed this when we discussed misanthropist. Philanthropist and misanthropist are antonyms, right? Phil means love, anthro means mankind, lover of mankind who believes in giving charities, helping others is called as a philanthropist. Just for your information one more time, misanthropist will be the antonym of philanthropist. Philogynist. Phil means love, gyn means women. So if you have excessive love towards women, you are actually called as a philogynist. Pedophilia. Ped, few minutes ago I told you, ped actually means child. Ped is a root word which means child or children. Phil means love. Excessive love towards children is actually called as pedophilia. In fact, there is a word called pedophile. If you are a person who is attracted, in other words, sexually attracted towards children, you are actually called as a pedophile. Sexually attractive. Next one, philanderer. We already discussed this, right? Phil means love. Andro actually means male. So if you have excessive love towards male, you are sexually attracted towards male, you are actually called as philanderer. Opposite of this is misandry. Yes, we discussed this under andro. Next one is philatelist. Philatelist is a person who loves collecting stamps of different countries, locations, areas, etc. Philologist. Philologist is a person who loves to learn different languages. For example, my father was a multilinguistic person. He knew to read, speak and write in 8 languages. Okay. He loved learning different languages to such an extent that definitely I can call my father a philologist. He had excessive love towards learning new languages, which means philologist. Last but not all the least, Anglophile. Anglo means British, right? Phil means love. So, if you are sexually attracted to British or you have excessive love towards British, or you can actually call them as Anglophile. Let's look at one of the major root words, what we have been seeing here and there, that is phobia. Phobia means fear. In fact, when I was surfing in the net for the words phobia, there are close to 728 plus phobias across the globe. And this is something very serious what we are talking about for sure. But I have chosen some of the phobia words which can be used day-to-day conversation. But I want to let you know this is definitely not the end list of words for sure. Okay, there are plenty. The first word under phobia is ophidiophobia. Ophidiophobia means fear of snakes. If you are a person, every time you visit zoo, but you never go to snake section, then you are an ophidiophobic. Remember, the moment you replace the letter A with C, you can use that word phobic directly on a person. Okay, keep this in mind. Agoraphobia. Agoraphobia means fear of white spaces, or fear of getting into crowds, staying with a lot of people. Okay, so if you are a person who is afraid of these situations, then you are an ophidiophobic. Acrophobia, fear of darkness. Acoustic phobia. Acoustic definitely should not be a new word for those people who are lover of music, because whenever you play the guitar, usually people start with acoustic guitar, which makes a lot of sound. Okay, plus it's not like an electric guitar how we play. Usually electric guitars, when you play without the electricity, it doesn't make any sound, but acoustic guitars are not like that. They make a lot of sound. So acoustic basically means sound. Phobia, fear. Fear of noise or sound is actually called as acoustic phobia. Gynophobia. Gynophobia, we have already discussed. Jinn actually means women or female. Phobia means fear. So gynophobia means actually fear of women. Isolophobia, Isolo should be actually reminding you of the word isolation. Okay, isolation means what? Feeling separated, so isolo comes from isolation. Phobia means fear of solitude or fear of being alone. Some people, when they are home, they cannot be alone at all. They need someone to be with them, to stay with them all the time. So if you are such kind of person, you are an isolophobic. Amaxophobia, in fact, amaxophobia and androphobia both are synonyms. Androphobia is equal to amaxophobia. Amaxophobia is equal to androphobia, which means fear of men for sure. Next word, arachnophobia, fear of spiders. Atelophobia, fear of imperfection. Always you have this feeling it's not perfect. It has to be better. It has to be better. And you're so afraid of being imperfect, maybe in terms of your grooming, in terms of your looks, in terms of the way you do things, in terms of the way you walk, you speak. You can actually call it as atelophobia. Next one, hemophobia. Hemo actually comes from hemoglobin. You must have definitely heard of this word, hemoglobin, when you got your blood test done for sure. So hemophobia, hemo or hem means blood. Phobia means fear. Hemophobia, fear of blood. Ornithophobia. Ornitho is a root word which means birds. Phobia means fear. Fear of birds is actually called as ornithophobia. Ailurophobia means fear of cats. You don't want to have cats at home just because you are an ailurophobic. Pedophobia. Pedophobia is fear of children. Let's recollect here. Ped actually means child, which is a root word. Phobia means fear. So fear of children, pedophobia. Phasmophobia. If you are a person who is afraid of being in the dark, because you are afraid of being attacked by a devil or a ghost or a spirit, definitely you can call yourself as a phasmophobic person. Hydrophobia. Hydro means water. Phobia means fear. Hydrophobia, fear of water. Do you know what do we call for fear of heights? If you don't, please make a note of it. Acrophobia. Xenophobia, which we discussed already. Xen is a root word which means strangers or foreigners. Phobia, fear. Fear of strangers or foreigners is called as xenophobia. Catsaridophobia, fear of cockroaches. It's one of the favorites of we women for sure. The moment we see one cockroach in a bathroom or in the entire world is gonna get to know there definitely is a cockroach in our house for sure. Herpetophobia. Herpetophobia means fear of lizards or reptiles. Just now we looked at the words which mean fear of something. So let's look at the words which mean obsession of something. Look at the words over here. Bibliomania. Bibliomania. Few minutes ago when we were discussing Phil, we actually discussed this word bibli. Bibliophile was the word what we discussed. Bibli, I told you, is a root word which means books. Mania means obsession. So if you are too obsessed with having as many books as possible with you, and it's a kind of disorder what you're facing, you're doing it too much. Basically, it is excessive. Okay, so that's actually called as bibliomania. Dyspomania. Dyspomania basically means craving for drink. In other words, you are an alcoholic. You are such an alcoholic that you're so obsessed with consuming alcohol all the time. So here it's all about alcohol. Egomaniac, very, very important. Ego. Everybody knows this word ego, right? It's like I, me, myself. Nobody can speak to me like that. Nobody can behave with me like that, etc. So if that is the case, you're obsessed with your ego. You are an egomaniac for sure. Kleptomania. So if you are a person who is obsessed with stealing, you're not stealing because you have an objective, you have a purpose to fulfill. You are stealing because you are obsessed. In other words, it's a disorder. So if you're obsessed with stealing, you're actually called as a kleptomaniac. Okay. Pyromania. Pyro is a root word which means fire. Mania is a root word which means obsession or disorder. So, excessive desire to set fire. Wherever you go, you just set fire and you come because you love to see fire wherever you go. One of the best examples is the movie The Orphan. In that movie, the lead role, is played by a person, a girl. In fact, a woman who is of 32-year-old but looks like as if she is of 10 or 11-year-old all the time, but who is a pyromaniac. She goes and she sets the fire and she comes out, right? That is pyromania. Monomania. Monomania actually means obsession of drugs. You're so obsessed with drugs that without consuming drugs, you cannot sleep, you cannot eat, you can't think of anything else apart from drugs. That's exactly called as monomania. Nymphomania. Nymph. Actually, nymph stands for women. So, if you have this uncontrollable sexual desire, there has been a movie in Hollywood which was released in the year 2014 or 15, right? Which is completely based on nymphomania, where there is one woman in the movie who is such a nymphomaniac that she is crazy to have sex wherever she goes, in spite of even not knowing the person with whom she would be having sex, etc. So that excessive, uncontrollable sexual desire is called as nymphomania. Zoomania. Zoomania means it's like you have abnormal love towards animals. Zoo stands for animal over here. Abnormal love of animals. You love animals to such an extent, if anything happens to them, you might even go to the extent of killing yourself. So, if you are so obsessed with animals, it means you are a zoomaniac. As we had this root word ology few times here and there when we were discussing the other root words, let's look into some more words under the same category called ology. Look at the first word, ontology. Ontology means the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being. These are all very technical terminologies basically. You might not be able to use them in your day-to-day conversation very effectively, but if you know them, it's always an added advantage, because while discussing something with somebody, while having debates, or while reading something, you would get to understand things much better and far better than the other people. Okay. Dendrology. Dendrology means study of trees. Penology. Penology means study of the processes devised and adopted for the punishment and prevention of crime. Penology. Study of the processes devised and adopted for the punishment and prevention of crime. Okay. Anthology. Anthology actually means a collection of literary works. For example, everybody knows Shakespeare, right? So if you have a collection of all the dramas written by Shakespeare, then definitely it can be called as an anthology. Necrology. Necrology. Necro is actually a root word. Necro is a root word which means death, something connected to death. Ology means study. So necrology means a listing of people who have died during a specific period of time. So basically, you are systematically listing out the number of people who died in a particular period of time. Alright. So if you study this very systematically, this is actually called as necrology. Ophthalmology. Ophthalmology means anatomy, functions and treatment of eyes. Anatomy, functions and treatment of eyes. So again, one of the technical words. Then comes meteorology, which means study of atmosphere and phenomenon. Sociology, study of society. Biology, study of life, right? Neurology, study of brains. Physiology, physi. Usually physi is a root word which means body. That's why we have this word called physician. a general doctor, right? Psychology, study of mind. Dermatology actually means study of skin. Okay. Entomology means study of insects. Archaeology, study of past by excavation and analysis of materials remains. You go to a place where there has been an empire and you literally do the excavation and you try to find out whatever has been buried in the ground, based on which you get to know what must have happened. You make an analysis of the same. That is archaeology. Theology, which we discussed under the root word the or theo. Theo means God, ology means study, study of God, theology. So in fact, when you talk about ology, the list of words what you get to see under ology is like quite lengthy. There are many kinds of study. We have a specific word which will be speaking about study of some.